beautiful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Gianna Lian, and today I'm doing an updated version of how I annotate, the supplies that I use, the do's and don'ts of annotating, what it even is, and showing you guys some examples of some of the finished annotated books that I've done, and kind of exactly bringing you through how I basically annotate my books. But before we get into it, make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up and comment down below your guys' thoughts on annotating before we get into everything. I made this video almost a year ago today on my channel, and I kind of wanted to film this video to give you guys a little bit of an updated version because I have changed my annotating styles a little bit since then, and I've included so many more supplies. I've discovered so many more tools that make annotating so much easier and so much more enjoyable for me personally. So I wanted to share with you guys the updated versions and show you guys examples of how I've grown as an annotator basically. But what even is annotating? You guys have probably seen it all over Bookstagram, Pinterest, BookTok, everything of these like aesthetically pleasing pages of people drawing on their pages, underlining, writing all over their books and stuff, which is controversial to some people. Some people do not like to write in their books. They don't want to put a single mark on the pages, and that is completely okay. This is very personal and kind of a way for people to express themselves throughout their books and when they're reading them and what they're feeling towards the books while they're reading them. So annotating is basically just marking up your books. It could be just little notes, it could be underlines, it could be highlights, or you could go extreme like those aesthetic Pinterest posts that people are physically drawing things in their book and they look amazing. I mean, trust me, I wish I could do that, but I have a very more laid back way of annotating, more on the simple side, but still so enjoyable for me, and I absolutely have fallen in love with annotating over the past year and a half. That is basically what annotating is, but I do want to say before we get into the examples and showing you guys how exactly I do it, annotating is very personal depending on the type of reader you are and the person you are. No one's annotations are really going to be the same. Like I said, it's very personal and unique to you, and there honestly is no right or wrong way to annotating. It is completely made up. It is completely up to you. So this is just the way that I do it, and I wanted to share with you guys because I did get lots of comments about how I annotate my books and how I kind of do it. So this is the video for you guys. First, getting into the supplies that I use, which have been kind of all over the place. I've been jumping between different supplies. The most important one, in my opinion, is your tabs. I recently have put all my tabs and bookmarks and stuff in this little tiny bin that I got from Temu. All my annotating stuff normally sits on my book cart in my room, so that's why I kind of put everything in bins and containers. But tabs, in my opinion, for annotating is a complete game changer. I am obsessed with tabs. I have this weird obsession with them and finding a whole bunch of new ones that I can buy online. I've tried a lot of different tabs from different websites and stuff like that, but my personal favorites that I've had are these ones from Temu that I got. They were so cheap, and honestly, they're really good quality. These ones are personally my favorite because they do have that ruler on the bottom here that I use when I specifically want to annotate something super quickly. It makes it so much easier to not have to like pull out a ruler or anything. I can just use this as my bookmark, my ruler, and obviously it has all my tabs on it, so it's perfect. These ones are personally my favorite for that reason. Plus, they literally come in so many different colors. I'll have them linked down below for sure. We also have my go-to. Amazon used to be the only place that I would pick up tabs from because it's so easily accessible. They're cheap and they ship fast. It's just a no-brainer, easy access and convenient. So I highly recommend you try ones from Amazon as well. The options are endless over there, and that's what I love about them so much, and they're amazing quality. You know that the quality is not going to be bad from Amazon. I do also have an Amazon storefront that has everything supplies wise linked down below there, so make sure you guys check out that link to my Amazon storefront where you can find everything that I talk about in this video. So then if you guys want to buy it, it's easily there. Then we move into different tabs. These ones I've had for a while. I don't remember where I necessarily got these, but I have seen them on Amazon. So I'll link ones that are similar down there, but these ones are definitely different. They have the pointed edges on the side, and they're obviously more like vibrant colors. I like these ones because it comes with more for each color than the Amazon ones do, which, knowing me, I tab a lot of things in my book, so I hate when I run out of a color midway through a book and then I have to change it or pick one that's similar. With these, you don't have to worry about that as much. And also, these do look pretty dark, but they are see-through once you put them on your page, so you won't have to worry about the tab hiding the words after you put the tab there for your annotation, which is perfect. Moving into more supplies, meaning like pens and highlighters and all that fancy stuff, I do have a little tiny container that I've put everything in. It just makes it so much easier, and I've organized it between the differences of the supplies that I use. Starting off with pens, I love these black pens. I think personally a black pen, having one is so essential when you're annotating, because yes, colored pens and stuff are fun too, but I love writing my notes in black pen. It just makes the book look so much cleaner and how I personally like it. So if you find a good black pen that you're gonna fall in love with, then that's my favorite thing ever, because you always know that that black pen is going to be your annotating pen. My favorite pen that I've fallen in love with, it's the Papermate Inkjoy in 1mm. I love these pens. You can literally find them anywhere. They're not expensive at all, and if you buy a big pack of them, they'll never run out. I've had this specific one for probably like 6 months now, and I use it all the time, so these never run out. I also recently picked this one up. It's the Zebra Saracen in 0.7mm. This one is definitely a smaller ballpoint, but the ink in this pen is more like a gel pen, so sometimes the ink is a little bit inconsistent. So if you are trying to find a pen that you can write smaller notes in, I don't really recommend gel pens because the ink normally smears or it doesn't come out as consistent thick-wise, if that makes sense. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. But if you guys don't really care about name brand and stuff like that, I do have these two pens. I picked both these up from the dollar store and they work just as good in my opinion. They just don't last as long. This one is running out sadly. It's the Studio Gel in 0.5mm. It is a gel pen like I said, so this one sometimes when I'm writing a note in my book, the ink will not come out and then a big blob of it will on my book, which I hate when that happens. Because it is a gel pen, that's what kind of happens. And same with this one, which is also the Studio one, but it does have a thicker tip, so this one will ultimately write thicker and the ink will be a lot darker. Those are all my black pens that I absolutely love. Moving into the colorful part, we have highlighters. These are personally my favorite highlighters I've ever used. These are the mild liners and they're double-ended. Mild liners are known to be expensive, but honestly they are the best highlighters that I've ever purchased in my life. You are spending a little over $20, especially just for these 5, but with my pack it did come with 5 regular black pens as well that I love. They're known to be expensive, but they're amazing quality. I've had these for over a year now and none of them have dried out. Highly recommend these highlighters because they're my favorite, and a lot of other people use these, so they're pretty popular, so you know they're gonna be good quality and you're getting your money's worth. These are definitely gonna be linked down in my storefront because of how much I love them and how much I recommend them to you guys. Moving towards like budget highlighters, I also have these ones. It came in a humongous pack. I got these from my local Walmart. So these ones are the Pen and Gear highlighter. I'm not sure if that's the exact brand, but these ones are super good too, except because they aren't the best quality, I feel like some of them do bleed on the page a little bit, which is why I personally think if you invest once in really good highlighters, you're not gonna have to worry about constantly buying the cheap ones over and over again. These ones are still a really good option. And the last highlighters that I've tried are from Temu. I've gotten these flat ones. These ones are trending basically everywhere, but because I got mine from Temu for so cheap, these ones have started to dry out a little bit on me, but overall for the price of them and how many uses I actually have used them for, I say that they're pretty good for the price. The colors are gorgeous. They're just like some simple like pastel colors and stuff, and knowing me and how I like to match some of my highlighter colors to the book cover of the book that I'm reading, it's just awesome to have a variety. You need the variety in your life. But those are basically all the supplies that I use while I'm annotating. You honestly can pick up anything to start annotating. You don't need a bunch of fancy colored highlighters and a specific pen and stuff like that. But that's just what makes annotating so much more fun to me, is trying a bunch of different things and adding so much color to my pages and make it very specific to the books that I'm reading and how I'm feeling towards them. So this is what I've found that works for me and stuff. I don't know. Don't feel pressured to have all these supplies in order for you to start annotating, because like I said, you generally can use anything. And lastly, just like I did in my last video, I wanted to show you guys some examples of the books that I have annotated and kind of the differences between them, because every single book I annotate is not kind of in the same way. I have different ways on annotating certain books for certain reasons. So starting off with one of my most heavily annotated books, I would say, it's Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. If you guys watch my other videos, you guys know how much I am in love with this series, and I have heavily annotated basically every single book in the series I've read so far. far, and this one was just a no-brainer to annotate because I knew I was gonna love this book, and because I know the characters and how much I love this universe, I really wanted to put a lot of thought towards annotating it, kind of personalizing it in a way that I know when I look back at this book, I can look at my annotations and feel everything I felt from the first time that I read this book, which is a magical feeling, let's just say that. For this one, for my tabs, I did stick with tabs that kind of correlated with the book cover. I did match the tabs and then kind of make my own tabbing system based on the colors in the cover, which I recently have started doing, and I absolutely love that. It makes the full final product look so much better in my opinion. So these tabs kind of correlated with the book cover. That's a new thing that I recently have loved doing when annotating before I even start the book. It's just a fun way to get me excited to annotate and start the actual book. And then after I do that, I make a tab legend, which it looks something sort of like this. And the legend basically just helps me remember which tab is for what thing I want to kind of annotate. For this one, for example, I had one tab for Lian Low moments because that's our book couple. So those are like couple moments. Then I had a tab specifically for Low, so all the parts I loved about his character. Same with a tab for Lily as well. Then I had Love and Spice as a tab because this book was pretty spicy. I also had a color for quotes, so any quotes or lines that stood out to me that I really enjoyed. And then lastly, I had one for sad because there were a lot of parts throughout this book that were sad that stood out to me that I wanted to tab because this book does deal with real life events and things that the characters struggle with. To go through some of my specific annotations throughout this book, this one specifically, I did have a few moments where I just highlighted some of the lines in it and I just left it at that. And then there were other moments where I would kind of bracket a certain part that I wanted to keep, write a little note to myself or like a one-word explanation in the margins, and then I would also tab it. So that's like the full mile that I would do on a single page, is all those things, but it varied between some of the pages. Sometimes I would just tab it, sometimes I would just highlight it. Other times I would do the full thing like I just explained. Another thing I really have been loving doing lately is circling words on specific pages of the book. Obviously have some words throughout a book that stand out to me, so circling one of the words really makes me remember the significance of this section of the book and stuff. So this, I would say, is probably one of my most heavily annotated books that I've done recently, and personally one of my favorite ones that I did. This is an example of like full on annotating. Another one that's kind of similar is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I personally wasn't the biggest fan of this book, but I wanted to include this as an example of my annotations because this one kind of has a similar idea to Addicted for Now, but my annotations were a lot more aggressive and kind of me just yelling at the characters, I want to say. I was just kind of putting in my own thoughts and opinions on the pages of what the characters were doing and stuff. I was putting my own opinions like, oh, like, why are you doing this? Or, oh, like, this is so wrong, you know? Those are basically like my comments throughout this book that I did. Along with my tabs for this one, I did make them stick out more so they're not so much hidden on the pages as well, which sometimes I end up doing that, and then other times I just want my tabs to be kind of like hidden and not seen as much. That's another thing that kind of differentiates between the books that I annotate. A lot of the annotations throughout this book were honestly me just highlighting random things. Sometimes I wouldn't even put a single word on the page, I wouldn't tab it or anything. I would just highlight whatever stood out to me. And that's why I think almost every single page in this is underlined or annotated in a certain way. This is more of just like a messy way of my annotating and me just wanting to remember certain parts for certain reasons. It's just kind of random. There's no thought behind it, no aesthetic way that I wanted to make it look. But then a more detailed page would be something like this, where I basically just highlighted it, put a comment, tabbed it, and moved on with my day. I didn't really care if it looked lovely or aesthetic or anything like that. That's another example of a book that I would annotate that I didn't really like, but I still wanted to put my opinions throughout the book on the pages. The last two options that I have are more serious books that I decided to annotate, and it's very different for me to annotate a more fun, lighthearted book like a romance, and then annotating a book that deals with mental illness or something like this one, which is like a memoir. So I have different ways on annotating both types / genres. The first one, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, is my favorite book of all time. And this is when I first started annotating, really, but I knew that this book was my favorite and there were so many parts that I wanted to remember. So basically all I did was go through and just tab certain parts. I didn't write on this book. I didn't underline anything, highlight anything. I literally just took a tab and placed it in the section that I wanted it. My thought process behind it was I wanted to go back and reread this book at some point and be able to put all the detail that I wanted to when I was ready to come back to it and read it for the second time. So I think that's why I kept this so simple. And as you can see, I barely have the tabs sticking out because I didn't want to touch this book until I was completely ready, which hasn't really happened to me other than this book. Because this book had so much to uncover, I just was not ready to fully dive in on annotating and marking up the pages because I wanted it to look 100% and it wasn't going to at that time. It sounds so over thought out, but for my all-time favorite book, I really wanted it to be special and really wanted to annotate it exactly how I wanted to. This one's basically my simplest form of annotating. I don't do this like ever in my books anymore. Normally I'll at least have a highlighter to just highlight it, but this one was specifically just tabbed. This book, on the other hand, Love and Theft by Jocelyn Patton. It's a memoir of mental illness. This one was a very anticipated read for me, and I knew going into it because of the things that it dealt with, I wanted to heavily annotate this book. This one is on the more serious side. I went about annotating this one a little bit differently than the romances and funny books that I normally would annotate. So for this one, I did match the tab with the cover of this book. I just thought it looked super clean and aesthetic. This one I really took my time and annotated. Just really wanted to pour down all my thoughts onto these pages because of how serious it was and everything that it talked about. My legend for this one was super simple, super vague. It definitely wasn't specific, but I wanted to keep it that way so then I could have more so topics to tab instead of specific parts. I had a tab for sad, I had a tab for relatable, then one for growth, and one for quotes. Those are just some of the things that stuck out to me and kind of like a base point of what I wanted to tab. But a few of these tabs before I even wrote what I wanted that specific tab to be for, I started reading the book and then I went back and wrote the topic that I wanted to tab later on in the book, because sometimes going into a book when I'm making my annotation key tab, I don't know exactly what's going to stand out to me about certain books. So I'll have the colors already and then I'll go back and kind of label what I want to be tabbing throughout the rest of the book. So that's also another thing that you can do if you are going into a book and you don't exactly know what you're going to want to annotate yet until you actually dive into it and get the vibe and feeling of the book. But I was really proud of my annotations throughout this. I highlighted and underlined and wrote a lot of things in the margin. I circled lots of words. This one just really impacted me in a good way because this book promoted so much self-growth and kind of just dealing with things that are happening in your life. But here are basically just some examples of how I annotate. As you can see in most of my annotations, I would highlight certain sections and then underline certain ideas, circle some of the words, and then I would tab it. So I kind of did every form of detail on almost every single page. So many things stood out to me and I was so drawn to the writing of this book that I really wanted to document those things that were happening. So that gives you guys kind of an example of how I would annotate kind of a more serious book. It's not so much just like silly annotations and stuff. It's more heartfelt and insightful to me that I want to document and keep forever when I look back on this book. So I don't have to reread certain sections. I can just go back to my tabs and be like, oh yeah, I remember this section. Like this is why I annotated it. That's my favorite part about annotating is I could just go back and re-feel all the feelings that I felt before. But those are the examples of books that I have for my annotating and how I kind of do it, showing you guys a little glimpse exactly on the pages that I have done. That's my annotating 101 updated version. I hope you guys learned something new from this video. If you guys were ever wondering about annotating and kind of how people do it, how specifically I do it, the supplies that I use, kind of some tips and tricks, I really hope you guys found this video insightful and learned something. If you guys have any other questions about annotating specifically or anything I talked about in today's video, please let me know down below. I answer all my comments, so I would love to help you guys out even more. Annotating is so much fun, and once again, like I said, it is very personal. There's no wrong way to go about it, so don't ever feel pressured to do it a certain way and stuff like that, because honestly, it's all up to you. With that, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff you guys know how to do, and don't forget to check the link down below for my Patreon to join the Patreon family. We have a lot of fun over there. They are able to message me literally whenever whatever, ask me any questions. I am there to chat with them. So make sure you check that link so you don't miss out on things like that. But other than that, I really hope you guys are having an amazing, wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Grown as an annotate, write very, sometimes from when I makes it so much more fun.